everybody.
Mic on.
Good evening and Happy New Year. It is our first meeting of 2023, January 5th. We'll start by reading our vision statement. The Ashland Public Schools is a forward-thinking district that cultivates the academic and social-emotional growth of each student through a supportive, collaborative, innovative, and challenging environment. Students will develop into self-motivated, resilient, lifelong learners who embrace their role as responsible contributors to a global community. This meeting is being recorded by WACA Cable TV, and our order of business this evening is call to order, opening procedures, agenda review and adoption, items of interest to the public comment. Our administrative items will include, there will not be a presentation on the National School Development Council and Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Student Award presentations, because Mr. Adams did that earlier today. But he will name the recipients and tell us a little bit about what happened earlier today and how to view that. We will have the student travel proposal, JSA Debate Club, Arlington, Virginia, February 24 to 26, 2023. The student travel proposal for London, Paris, and Madrid, April 15 to 19, 2024. Preschool tuition rate increase proposal for 2023-2024. Superintendent's update, assistant superintendent's update, warrant approvals. Our consent actions will include approval of minutes from December 15th, 2022, approval of gifts and donations, committee reports of activities, member updates, action items, and then we will adjourn. So I'll take the roll call and ask if everyone's okay with the order of business this evening. Tina Fatanides?
Yes.
Paul Kendall?
Yes.
Aaron Williams?
Yes.
Mark Terry? And yes, for me as well. And
Yes.
yes, thank you, sorry. Remember that we've got to turn those on when we're talking. I will ask now if there's anybody here or online who would like to give public comment this evening. And seeing and hearing none, we will move. Jim, if you could just brief us on the first item on the agenda, the National School Development Council and Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents.
Sure, absolutely, thank you. So each year, these two organizations, which are part of the superintendent's organization, one is specifically for Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, and the other, the National School Development Council, which is the group that we work with for NESDEC, for our enrollment studies. They also do executive searches, et cetera. They give a superintendent an opportunity to recognize three individuals, so two for the NESDEC and one for the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, based on the population of our district. So three seniors get to be recognized by the superintendent for a number of things, but academic growth, leadership, how they participate in school activities, so a variety of character that they display within the school setting throughout the course of their career in Ashland Public Schools. And what I do is I typically have a conversation with Ms. St. Kerr, as well as guidance staff. It doesn't necessarily mean you're the valedictorian, the salutatorian. It's really three individuals who meet that criteria that is set forth by MASS and NESDEC. And so it's always a pleasure that I get to present this to these students. Often we have them here when I present it. This year, those three couldn't make it tonight. And in the years past, I tried to get it done earlier, but we didn't have the certificates. So they can use it as a college, on their resume for colleges and part of their Common App, typically. As I said to them today, Mike was there, they didn't need it. They didn't need any of this stuff that I gave them in terms of a certificate. All three of them, and I'll introduce them briefly, have gotten into the schools of choice already. So this is just one more piece of paper that they probably have now at the house. But we will have just a press release that of pictures of the students and myself, as well as the counselors and Mike. And Mike had these kids as at the Warren School and second graders. And so it was really a nice, 10-minute presentation today at the high school, because of course they all had to get into classes, and it's how these students are. But so for the MASS Certificate of Academic Excellence, I went to Jenny Pickett, without reading the whole bio from the counselors, but Jenny is a compassionate individual, an excellent student, participates in a lot of volunteer opportunities, the yearbook club, et cetera. And Jenny is headed to Syracuse University in the fall with a double major of film production and business administration. So pretty exciting. She was excited to get into both those programs. The NESDIC certificates, again, are designed for academic growth and leadership within your school community. And I get 2 awards there to present. And the first one went to Chris Bialczyk. And, you know, Chris is, again, National Merit commended student, excellent academically, participates, Eagle Scout, again, a solid leader within the district. Chris is heading to Northeastern with an intention to study bioengineering, which is fantastic. And our last recipient of the NESDIC is April Wang. And April is, again, a phenomenal student, robotics club. She's on this, she'll be here at our next, when we have our next live meeting, school advisory committee. And April was just recently accepted into Cornell, and will be headed to Cornell in anticipation of majoring in engineering. So those were the 3 students that were presented to me through Ms. St. Kerr, as well as the counseling staff. So, you know, publicly, I'd like to, you know, congratulate them and their families and the work that they've all done. So, and like I said, there'll be a little press release coming out with that information. So,
awesome.
Great.
Congratulations,
yeah,
everybody.
Yeah, it's excellent work. So.
Excellent work. Next up is the student travel proposal. Are we ready for that one?
So we're going to skip to number 3
Okay.
because Ms. St. Kerr will be jumping online. Ms. Marshall, who is the JSA advisor, isn't jumping on it. So I've been texting back and forth with Kelly. She just got home, so
Gotcha.
she'll be jumping on in a minute.
Okay.
Corey, are you available?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Awesome.
Hi, Corey.
Hello. I don't know if you guys can see me or not.
Yeah, we can see
and
you.
we can hear you. Hi. You're
Hi,
going to
everyone.
London, Paris, and Madrid, hopefully.
But if
Tell us about it.
Sure. This is actually the second time I've done this specific trip with Ashland High School. And this is the 5th trip, Europe trip I've done through Ashland High School. But London, Paris, Madrid is one of my favorites because I think those 3 cities are particularly great for students to experience, and 3 very different cultures, 3 different languages. Including hitting both our, you know, we offer Spanish and French, so I'll have students that will be in either of those classes. And so it's, you know, 2 different currencies that they have to utilize, the English pound and the euro. So it gives them a very good taste of the Western side of Europe, as well as learning how to travel and getting around the country and seeing some amazing things. You know, we're only there for 9 to 10 days. So it's kind of a greatest hits a little bit. You're in and out so quick in the cities. You're only there for two nights overnight. But you're really seeing the best of the best. You know, in Paris, we go to the Louvre, we see the Mona Lisa, as well as all the other pieces. But it's giving the kids a taste of what it's like to travel, and certainly what it's like to, travel amongst different cultures.
Who's got questions?
So Corey, how are students selected for this? And obviously this isn't until next year. So is it before us now so they can do fundraising for it, or?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I do that purposely. I like to give plenty of time for students and families to know if they're going to be doing this so that they can chip away at the cost. I especially like it introduced prior to a summertime so that if students want to get a part-time job and chip away at it that way. The kids are selected. I have an informational session open to everybody. And then what I do is I chunk out the signups. So I'll say, okay, rising seniors. So this year's juniors, they would get the first, period of time to sign up. I usually make it 2 weeks. And then once all the seniors have had a chance to sign up, then it's rising juniors. Sometimes we have enough spots for rising sophomores. It's been a long time since a freshman has gone, but usually it's upperclassmen, because I feel like if they can't make it when they're a freshman or sophomore, they'll be able to go as a junior or senior.
So Jim, part of my question is, I think I'd like to look at our forms as well, because we ask similar questions all the time, right? About, will there be fundraising involved? We should probably start to do that and also look at it from the equity lens, right? So here's a trip that's not a couple $100, right? It's over $4,000. So that screams, how do we make it as equitable as possible, knowing that a perfect world probably doesn't exist, right? It's impractical. But to the extent we can, how can we make this accessible to nearly everybody that would like to, because I'm sure, and how do we get that message out, right? Because, Mr. McGann can have these informational sessions, but I can tell you that there's probably a good portion of our students that are gonna be like, no way in hell am I even bringing this to my parents, because it's $4,000, so I think we should look at our forms for the things we always ask, plus also how do we look at it to, especially when it reaches a threshold like a trip like this, which is a great trip. How do we, to the extent we can, close those equity gaps? Because like I said, and make that known so that we can. So someone who doesn't think they can, maybe they can with the efforts we're going to do. So
Something like a lottery-based sponsored seat.
Whatever we can do. I don't want to.
So Corey, how have we dealt with that with previous trips? With students who financially have not been able to, if it was just within their wherewithal, they wouldn't be able to go?
That's a good question. I can't think of a situation where it's been brought to my specific attention that a student really wanted to go and wasn't able to make it work, but that might be a situation where they just chose not to move forward. I only take, anywhere between 30 and 40 students. So it's a situation where a student might have just not brought it to my attention that they really wanted to go, but couldn't make it work.
Yeah, I would imagine it's a tough thing for them to bring up, right?
Right, and that's the point. I mean, that's Paul's trying to make, is we've got to think in future how we make sure that every student within the high school has that opportunity. And we're going to do everything we can to ensure those students get an opportunity. I know in other districts, they actually have travel scholarships that they've set up. So fundraising goes into a specific scholarship that we can use to help with families that can't afford to go on trips like this. So that's the point.
It's kind of a bigger question.
Yep.
And how do we apply it to all sorts of things, right?
Yep.
I mean, I've known kids who, had concerns about even doing athletics,
right.
Because of the fee. So there are a lot of things that we can engage with in this conversation.
Yeah, and quite frankly, part of it is, some of the ones that might have already come to you and gone before are ones that might go on their own with their families or have that opportunity. But similar to our DC trip and the things I've said about that in the past about, what about the students that this is their one opportunity to do it, right? Because their family won't be able to, go as a family because it's pretty cost prohibitive if you're struggling.
So I think to deal with this a little bit, Corey, was when we have those announcements on signups and interest-based, right? That we do talk about, if there are concerns from a financial perspective, please do not let that hinder you from signing up at this point, right? I mean, we need to figure that out for our kids to ensure that they have the opportunity. And like you said, we've got a long period of time between now and next April. And I don't want any kid to be denied the opportunity because of financial reasons.
Right, like there's a way that we can present it that at least welcomes people into the introductory meeting.
Right.
And then where they can
Yeah.
maybe then find out that, there's one scholarship available, if we can get something like that together.
And the great thing is you're coming so far in advance that, if we can get an idea far enough in advance that, hey, there are 4 students that might need assistance, and we can then try to quantify that, we can have conversations about how we fill that gap.
Yep.
Whether that's fundraising, whether that's, hey, whatever the mechanism is, we could have those discussions as whether we can fill that gap.
And if there's even if there's just information about, put out there about financial assistance might be available.
Right.
At least kids won't not go in the door, right? They're gonna come forward, hopefully show an interest, and then we've got time to figure it out, as you point out.
Yeah.
But it's a part of a bigger conversation we need to have, because are we going to be kind of putting things in place? Because obviously, we're never gonna be in a situation where everyone who wants to go, who can't afford it, it's just not gonna be possible for that to happen, probably. So are we gonna be in a reactive situation where like, hey, we've got 4, how can we make it work? Or are we going to create scenarios where there are 2 spots for, you know,
Yeah, so I
It's a bigger
didn't want to, I didn't
conversation.
want to derail us on this,
Right.
but
No,
I
no,
wanted
no.
to bring it up
Yeah.
because let's figure it
For the
out.
future.
Right.
And this is a great one because it's given us a lot of time to have that conversation, but there's other ones that are like, hey, it's $900 and they're coming just a few months ahead, and
although
so.
I imagine, I'm sorry, Paul, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but Corey, I just want to know if this is true. If you get approved, I would imagine you're going to try to get interest sooner rather than later and have people make commitments,
Yeah.
right? Like, are we
Yeah, I
going
mean-
to be able to even have that conversation?
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, but it's over a year away, right? So,
So I don't think, Paul, you're not suggesting that we don't approve it.
no,
You're just
not
saying
at all.
Approve it, let him do what
Not
he's
at all,
gotta do.
but how do we? how do
But
we-
just
Just
sure
thinking
fit
through,
in.
like, once you sign up, for one of these trips, you pay for it when you sign up.
Well,
So
it's over time, right?
It is, but you have to make a commitment to how you're
Correct.
gonna do it, give a credit card, you have to put something down. You can't sign up and commit to a spot without some type of financial commitment. So I think
95.
while it's important for us to think through, like you mentioned, I don't know that it's something we're, in timing wise, to be able to specifically address for this trip.
Well, I don't know,
We might.
I don't know
I don't
when a
know.
financial commitment needs to be made, but if it's not soon, then I think the biggest thing is how's those initial communications made to not preemptively close a door on students' interests.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
You know what I mean? So then we can at least identify, and if we can't fill the gap, we can't fill the gap for
Absolutely.
timings or whatever, but we'll know, we'll have an idea of a gap. right?
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. Just thinking through timing of,
Yeah.
of how it goes out.
I do know, usually you do start putting your deposit in, and it could be up to a year in advance, right, Corey?
Yeah, the deposit itself is $95.
Yeah.
EF has given me the inclination that if there's something significant, there's something that we can speak to that a family needs to beg out of. They're usually pretty flexible with that first initial $95 payment, especially if it's well in advance of the trip.
Good, yeah.
Corey, I have a question about nursing, because there's no nurse signature on this.
We don't know the kids yet.
Yeah.
It says when they find out what the kids
Yeah,
are.
we won't
Oh,
know who the
okay.
kids are, so yeah, until,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yep,
So
no
what I
worries,
do
yeah.
is, once I have the final roster, I bring that roster to the nurse's office. The nurse creates for me a letter that gets sent to every single parent. The parent has to submit back the form that they create, letting us know about any medications, any allergies, any issues. So I work really closely with them right up until the moment we were leaving. This was especially true last year when I was doing COVID stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just, Jim, the conversation we had about DC
Yep.
and the nursing staff.
Sure.
My concern is here we are pushing, and if we're planning this a year in advance, do we really have a nurse to go?
No, typically the nurses don't go on this.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. So,
okay. So
and
students self-administer whatever they need?
correct at
Okay.
this age, yeah.
And so Jim, just question, so we approve it now.
Yep.
What is the final approval check? Because right now, the form has that, trip supervisor, principal, assistant superintendent, and superintendent have all signed off. What is we should have a final toll gate that says an approval has to be, for something, for something to go, right? Right, we can say.
This is, we
Yeah.
usually don't see them again
Right.
until maybe they
Right, but
return.
I'm not saying it's us. I'm saying
Yeah.
right now, there's still, like, the nurses and all those other
Right,
things to
sure.
ensure that, what is that toll gate to ensure that, hey, because right now.
He's gone to the
if-
nurses?
If we've approved it, you've approved it, everybody's approved it,
How do we know he's gonna go to the nurses?
what's that final toll gate?
Fidelity to the
right? So,
Expectations,
and I'm not saying he's not,
Yeah.
I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, this is next year, there's outstanding things that need to be done, but who ensures that gets done? I mean, I'm sure Mr.
Corey
McGann
does.
will, but it can't be left to
Right.
the applicant, right?
Yep. No,
to
and
ensure
again,
that
I think
gets
as we
done.
look through the form, I think that's another spot to add on to.
Right.
Well, does, and you both probably know better than I do, does Google have workflows, like surveys, but with assigned?
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to solve it here, but.
No,
but-
not, I'm sorry,
but-
like, that, to build what you're talking about of the
Well, it could
toolkits.
even just be that Jim
Is
doesn't,
it last
Jim is the last
final sign-off,
approval
yeah.
before the trip can go, or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Just build it into the thing
Sure.
to make sure that as we do these, because we always ask the nurse question, the students haven't, so just making sure we cover off on that, so we don't end up in a situation where a trip occurs and something got missed, right?
Fair enough.
Can I just, I guess, suggest on the primary point that we've been discussing about equity, we're gonna be going to our budget season. They've already been in it for a while probably, but we're gonna have a budget meeting, when did we say that, March? Yeah, okay. Let's not lose sight of this, because that's, I know the budget will be tight this year. Well, next year's budget will be tight as we go through it, but, we can, even for what is a relatively small amount of money in our budget, we can set aside some amount of money for these types of concerns. I don't know what, there's a
Well,
lot of other stuff that's gotta go into that conversation, right? But
Yeah,
I just
Kinda
don't
put a
wanna
pin
lose.
in it.
let's add
Yeah.
that, let's add that to that, because I mean, I'd ask you, can we even expend money for that purpose, right? On a trip like this, could the district expend our funds for a particular student? I don't know the question, but
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that question.
I would look at it more carefully, but I think so.
Okay.
I mean, it's part of an educational program.
Paul, could you, policy-wise, a policy subcommittee, look and see if there's other towns that have policies written about student travel and scholarship?
We can look into it, but everybody can look into it.
Nice try.
So in just
go to
for
MSC.
Mr. McGann, and respect his time tonight.
Yeah.
Do we have further questions yet?
I
Tina?
just,
And then
I
I know
just
Tommy
had
does.
one more point, and Mr. Begin, you were mentioning in terms of when students apply. First, you're gonna have a window for rising seniors to apply, and then rising juniors, and, kind of one thing to keep in mind, I think the Italy trip that's happening this spring, and then the trip that happened last spring, because of COVID and kind of the more last minute planning of it, there were a number of students who will be rising seniors next year who will have gone on 2 Europe trips by their senior year. And so just kind of thinking through potentially giving preference to students who haven't had the opportunity to take a trip yet. I don't know if there's a way for you to ascertain it when they apply, but just something to keep in mind, since there are a limited number of spaces, rather than just first come, first serve. If there are students who have had the opportunity to travel before, maybe those who haven't can get preference.
I'm looking through you over to Chris, because that sounds like a process thing that if we keep track of.
Yeah, so it's only 100 or so people. I know on the trip that went last year, there were 31 students. The trip that's going this year is closer to 60. It might not be quite that, but it's closer. So you'd only have to run through one last one.
Well, but I think if we look at it more holistically, if we have trips going on to understand and have that equitable thing, like if it's only 90 or if it's only 130 opportunities to go to X number of substantial, let's make sure that, 10 people don't go on all of them.
Because I know there are some students going on the Italy trip who also went to Europe last spring. And so, but I think that's unusual, simply because of the last minute nature of the planning of the past 2 trips. I think it was more wide open to underclassmen.
Corey wants to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, the trip that I did last spring, that was 3 years in planning.
Exactly. That's
Right.
why. So the students who ended up on that
Yeah.
trip
Got moved because of
weren't the
COVID.
ones who originally signed up.
Right.
That's what I mean. So that it's an unusual situation. I don't anticipate that happening all the time. But for this trip next spring rather, for your trip, just something to think through.
I think from an equity
That on the
perspective.
record, I'm not a last minute guy.
That's good.
I agree, from equity, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yep,
So-
yep.
And I can vouch for Mr. McGann. He's an excellent chaperone.
I've been
No
on this
doubt.
trip.
No doubt.
Lori, he keeps you in check?
This exact
Does.
one you've.
I've been on this
Chaperones me.
exact trip.
Are we
all
allowed
right.
to chaperone? No, just kidding.
You've got to. There's two things you got to be when you do this kind of stuff, and the two most important thing is you have to have enthusiasm because it's a draining.
exhausting, I'm sure.
trip.
Yeah.
It's exhausting, and the second thing is you have to be hyper detail oriented.
Yeah.
You have to be on top of everything all the time, always.
So maybe in 2025, I'll volunteer.
Tommy,
And
did
have
you
a
have,
good pair of
did you have a
shoes.
question before?
No, nothing pressing. I was asking if Gwen's coming along again, but that's not exactly as on the same level as the equity and the funding level.
Great.
Who's got a motion?
I move to approve the trip as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Tina?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Corey. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Thanks,
sorry,
Corey.
sorry I made it not so long for you.
It's okay.
They
Thank
told you it
so
was
much.
only going to be 30 seconds.
No, I didn't say that.
No conversation.
2 minutes.
I'm involved with
So.
fix that.
That's some very good
Have a good night.
self-awareness.
See you later.
And,
Bye.
Okay, now are we going back up to the JSA?
yeah, the JSA, yeah.
Debate club?
Kelly, do you want to just talk about the JSA club, and Christina's not here tonight?
Sure, it's, yes,
We've
it
done this
is,
before.
our debate club. This is an annual conference that they have in the DC area. The trip has been done, many times before, but hasn't happened in, several years, obviously. It's a small group right now. It looks like they're planning about 6 kids going. They'll
Yep.
take the train down. They stay, on site where the conference is held. It's a pretty structured, event from start to finish, based on my experience from the past trips, in terms of the kids. Their activities throughout the entire conference are pretty well organized and maintained within that.
Anybody have any questions about that trip?
Is this just individually funded, or is this club funded, or fundraising, or?
I believe it's going to be individually funded.
Okay.
And I'll speak to a couple of the questions you had before. I don't know specific to Europe trip, but the Helping Our Own Fund has certainly helped kids with portions of trips in the past. And like if something immediate, like you have to make a deposit soon, that might be used. And then with working with the family to make a plan of how it's going to be paid over a course of time. But I know that fund has been used to make deposits for things like this when it's a struggle. And then Ms. Shields or someone might work with the student to kind of develop a plan for how the rest of the money is going to be raised.
Well, that's good to know. And, we should also be able to, when we have the bigger conversation, sort of let the public know that, that when you're contributing to that fund, these are some of the things that it's being used for.
Yeah, I think, certainly think, again, goes back to communication, right?
Yeah.
It's showing and
was
listening
gonna
to
say
folks,
that's smart, yeah.
showing folks how we're utilizing funds that are gifted to the schools,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, that whole fund was set up, to help students who aren't able to access some of the things.
That's right.
like-
Yeah.
Originally, right, access activities, yeah.
Yeah, it's done a
That was
lot
the
of
initial.
amazing
Yep.
things.
Yeah.
And also to address some of the questions you had about how do we know these things happen after the fact in terms of nursing and stuff, we also have a whole bunch of internal paperwork that the students have to fill out to go on a trip. That includes those checks that nursing and everyone has signed off. That gets turned in right before the trip happens.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly. Any more questions before we take a motion?
It's not exactly a question to Kelly, but Mr. McGann mentioned a
Is-
bunch.
I can't really hear.
Is it on, Tommy? Yeah, there you
Sorry,
go.
it's not exactly a question to Ms. St. Kerr, but Mr. McGann mentioned a lot about telling people in advance so that they could chip away a little bit. Is it something that is feasible for the school committee to do, or just the town of Ashland to do, to allow these people to take out loans from this group so that they can pay it over a longer period of time, so that, say, they could make $4,000 work once, and in comparison to college, maybe that's something that's doable, but not within a year. They could do it within like 5 years. Is that something that could happen, or is that not an option for
I
the
don't know that we
school
can
board?
act as a bank.
Right.
Yeah, it's probably complicated, and I think it sounds good, but I think it's self-defeating because it basically is saddling them with, with debt, right, as opposed to, so I think it's better to figure out how we help close that gap.
Okay,
right?
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's a good idea. It's probably better to see what we can get by way of scholarship.
Yeah,
So
no,
that-
I meant where scholarships can't meet
Right,
as a secondary.
yeah. Yeah, and that would be another
And you
legal
might-
question. Ms. St. Kerr?
I don't remember if it's ever happened with the Europe trip, but I do remember with some of our other trips, Costa Rica comes to mind, where there were families that came forward and said, we are going to scholarship
Right.
to students, please help, please, and we would work behind the scenes to help identify students that might have those needs. So it would be great to see something more permanently in place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To
I
help
mean, we could be better with the
scholarship
marketing, like
students.
the marketing, but we could be better, because I'm sure there's a lot of very generous people that if they knew there was a need for that and there was a fund that would accept donations for that, we could get more assistance. But I think it's more of a directed conversation about how we want to approach it. But
Yep.
certainly, we're on the same page about making sure that people feel that they can at least get the information and that we're willing to work with them to make it possible.
Yeah, I think it's probably, sounds like we really should take and package up Ashland Helps Its Own.
Yeah.
Have a landing place where people can go and start to utilize that. And then we could potentially say, here's an opportunity to fund, people can go and fund a particular thing, like if, and maybe with these trips, we set a threshold of, hey, if, certainly the $4,000 one should be, hey, that might be a funding opportunity, but maybe if we can find it in the budget and it's applicable, these smaller ones, we have the funding to provide
It sounds like we're at a point in this conversation where we really should put a pin in it and
Yeah.
put it
Yep.
on the agenda
And
for the future.
correct. And
yeah.
look at our fundraising policy,
Yeah.
because that
Yeah.
needs to be revisited.
So we've got some things to discuss for the
Okay.
future, but thanks for, we needed that information
Yeah.
so we know what we don't know, and now we know what we can move forward.
Did we give Kelly her approval?
We
No,
do not
I was
yet.
just gonna say, do we need a motion?
Yes,
do.
please.
All right, motion to approve student travel proposal, JSA Debate Club, Arlington, Virginia, February 24th to 26th, 2023, as presented.
Second.
All in favor, Tina?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Aye. It's approved.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Kelly.
Good night.
You too.
Preschool tuition rate
Aye.
increase.
I will turn that over to Sarah and Chris. Sarah, you set there?
Hi, Sarah.
I am, and I'm going to let Chris lead the way. He's the money guy.
So we were here last year doing a similar thing. We're gonna recommend tuition be increased. It's essentially 2.3%. One of them's 2.2%. It just depends on the dollar amount of the days that the students are attending. And the intent is simply to cover the operational expenses that come with both salary and operating the facility. So it's an incremental, essentially $10,500 that would be yielding additional revenue, which would be spending on the other side. So that's the recommendation.
Trying to stay cost neutral within the budget.
Correct,
And-
yes.
That's all it is.
And Jim, I wonder whether it makes sense if the one person that might ever watch this, maybe it makes sense to talk about our preschool and this tuition and what our preschool is now,
Yep.
and our intent behind it.
Sure. Sarah, can you just give that overview? You heard Paul's question, okay?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So we've worked really hard as a district to pull our preschool program and streamline it as part of our fifth school here in Ashland. And it's fully integrated, meaning that we accept community peers to pay tuition and be included in an integrated classroom with students that may require any level of need on an IEP. And that's something we're really proud of. It's across all of our sessions and all of our classrooms. And we continue to support our littlest learners here in Ashland. We currently have 3 classrooms that run an AM and a PM session for our 3-year-olds in the morning and our 4-year-olds in the afternoon. And then we have 2 4-year-old full-day programs and 1 multi-age 3 to 5 program, as well as 2 specialized programs for kiddos that may require a higher level of specialized instruction and support. All of them have inclusion throughout the day. All of our teaching staff are duly certified. Our educational support personnel are fabulous, all with a special education background, and really providing a nice, meaningful inclusion opportunity for all students. So the tuition Chris is referring to is for those community peers. And we hold all of our classrooms at 15 students with a duly certified teacher and an instructional assistant in the classroom, an ESP. And there's 8 community peers and up to 7 students with various levels of need through the special education supports. And the increase, as Chris said, is really just to help make us a little more cost neutral because we are a costly program. But at full, we would be bringing in 72 community peers to offset and support the special education services and programs.
Thanks,
Thank
Sarah. I think if somebody didn't understand our preschool program, they'd think if it's preschool, it's a revenue generator.
Right.
And
Just to ask one question, Sarah. Are we at capacity at this point in the program?
Not yet. We have a couple peer partner positions for this academic school year, but we've already been getting a lot of inquiries, and our registration process for the following school year starts next week for our current and alumni families, and then the 23rd of January for any new families. So we'll be having an information night for them and starting that process. It's crazy to think we have to plan this far in advance, but all the area preschools and daycare centers are starting their enrollment as well. So we want to make sure that we can provide our opportunities and let families know as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Sarah, while we have you here, I think it would be good for the committee to hear a little foreshadowing of where you see preschool and headed in the future, and I'm not talking about necessarily getting into universal pre-K, because you and I have had that conversation.
that's a loaded.
Yeah, I know it's loaded. You and I have this conversation all the time. But with regard to really the things you're seeing and the potential need, actually, just in the next couple years, like what are you seeing for student need and the challenges of getting the peer partners, right? So
Yeah.
can you just?
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's important.
First and foremost, we know the Ashland demographics are changing, and that's allowing us to kind of rethink and challenge us to think about our EL support, our early childhood experiences through play groups, and what we can do better to support the community, also through that equity lens, because we aren't yet at the universal pre-K option. As we continue to see the COVID impact, we definitely are seeing an increase in referrals, which take a lot of time through special education assessments to determine whether or not a child, we suspect a disability or we can identify a disability at this age. And it's really hard to tell right now because we haven't had typical early childhood learning opportunities for our 3-year-olds. They were born, I'm getting EI referrals, and children were born, in March 2020. So the exposure is a huge variable right now. And so to offset it, we're really trying to think about growing the program slowly and also trying to support the needs that we're hearing from our community family. We know there's an element of care that's needed. We have families that are working. Transportation is an issue. We don't have public transportation at the preschool level here in Ashland. And half-day programming is really hard for families. So as we think about growing, we've done a lot of inquiry with area preschools and my job alikes and thinking what is developmentally appropriate for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds is not necessarily a full day, but the world needs full day care and support. And so how can we kind of blend that into appropriate programming, as well as meeting some of the community needs that could bring in some more community partners into the program.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Sounds like another agenda topic.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, that's a big topic.
We will
And
be
then the
chatting
referral
about
down the
all of
road.
that. Any other questions? Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
So
I'm
do
sorry,
we-
actually, I did have one question for Chris. You talked about keeping it cost neutral to the budget. Does this increase actually do that? I mean, does it?
It does,
Okay.
yes, yep.
I just want to make sure.
We have a motion.
I move to approve the preschool tuition rate increase proposal for the 23-24 school year as presented.
Second again.
All in favor, Tina?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Erin? Aye. Mark?
Aye.
Aye. That passes, thank you.
So you can get all your registration stuff out, Sarah, and publish it. I know you've
Thank
been
you.
waiting
This
for that.
school will be very happy.
Yep, I know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a good one. Superintendent's update.
Sure, just a couple things, just to bring to your attention. As I tell you, I always track enrollment. And this time of year, we start looking at enrollment and how it's been impacted. And over the course of the last month, actually from December 12th through today, we're up 28 students, which is significant.
From what date was that?
From December 12th through today.
So the last 3 weeks.
1 month?
Last 3 weeks, 28 students.
Not even, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is
And-
that concentrated?
What do you think that's about?
It's a lot. It's very, like, actually, we had this conversation today. I was talking to Christy Arnold about, hey, are these, we typically will see an influx of our students from Brazil coming this time of year. It's not necessarily that. It's actually all over the map, in terms of grade levels as well.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, well, it's good. You know,
Spread the joy.
it's interesting.
But it's more difficult to predict,
It's a
right? 'Cause you don't-
challenge
Yeah.
to predict, right? And I think that when I look at this stuff, like I said, on a regular basis, you know, as of today, I give an example. The Warren School is up 4 kids, so that's okay. I'm comfortable with that. The high school's 6, the middle school is 7, and the high school is 11, right?
Well, so.
Did I say high school twice?
Yeah.
High school twice.
Middle school is 7, high school is 11.
Who's
But
6?
Mendez is 6.
Yeah, okay.
6, okay.
Right, and so it varies from grade to grade, but, you know, we're still not seeing a huge influx of kindergarten kids. It's still 174 kids, right? So it stayed pretty status quo.
What about their level of need in terms of English language
So
learners
that is
or
what we're
special
still
ed
working
needs?
through,
Okay.
right? So most of these kids are coming in right now, and we're trying to do screenings with those kids of at all grade levels. So it's and the majority are, if I look at it, 8 juniors have come in. You know, compared to last year. So the numbers, we're almost the exact same number we ended last year with. We were down 30, remember at the beginning there were about 30 plus kids, and we're quickly gaining those back. I don't know how many have come back from Keefe. I'd have to go back and look to see, you know, if there have been enrollees from there. I just track raw numbers.
So do you have any anecdotal information about what's driving this? Because it
I-
seems
I
unusual to
don't.
have that
Yeah.
increase in this period of time.
So I'd have to go back and look, Mark, to see if that's actually, historically, we know January
Right.
is a month where we're gonna get 15 to 20 kids.
Right.
So does that mean they came earlier?
Yeah.
I don't know, right? So we'll see how that process goes. I do want to say that Mike and I have been, you know, integrally involved. Our registration process is changing for the better. I said it today to their admin team meeting. I can't thank Christy, Esmer, Brittany, and Jen Cutler enough for the work they're doing at revamping our entire registration process with Leela to ensure that we're capturing all relevant information, to ensure that it's a seamless transition for families to come into the district, that we're gathering the appropriate information needed to enroll a child to ensure that they are residents of
We're
Ashland.
doing it digitally. hopefully.
Right. Well, we're doing a lot of it digitally. It will be online and in different languages, but some of it is digital already. But what happens is families show up at the door, and we want to make sure that we have that customer service that they need to ensure we're getting all the data that we need. We have kindergarten registration coming up in starting in a week or two, next week, and you know, it's important that we figure that out and make it seamless for families to get us information. So, but I do want to give them a huge shout out. It's been amazing. And then speaking of those individuals, Esmer and Christy and Mike and I have been meeting to plan the first family engagement night, which is next Tuesday, 6 o'clock at the high school in the library. We will have pizza. We currently have, between adults and students, 46 registrants.
Nice.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
Do you need, I already have it on my calendar. Do you need us to register?
No. You just
Show up.
You just show up. All the admin team will be there. A number of teachers will be there. It's hopefully, we have 8 high school volunteers already to be with the kids, and provide them opportunities while we're talking to parents. And it's really, the first one is about meeting and greeting, if you will, getting folks comfortable coming to the school. Actually, we had a meeting today, and they were like, Jim, what's your outcome? What are you looking for them to take away? And I said, to feel comfortable.
To walk out with a
to
smile
walk
on their
out,
face.
to know who we are. I mean, we're
To feel welcome.
having conversations about having a table with a variety of documents, not just from the schools, but from the town, connecting with Jeff Wolfing, and any resources that we might be able to have for the community to pick up, right?
Is there, are we targeting, like, parents or families that are with high school students, or any?
All L, anyone who is classified as an L student or was classified as an L student, that we currently monitor. So,
I like the was and
Yeah.
not just the.
Well,
current.
but it's only that 2-year window, right? Or whatever, that window, that tracking window that.
yeah, I don't know if Christy went even further back. I don't know, but again, it's our first effort at this, and it's exciting. As you know, as part of my goals, I wanted to have 3 or 4 of them this year. Let's get one in, and then we're going to definitely do one in April. That's what we talked about, and then potentially a final one in June. But as soon as we get folks in to feel comfortable about coming to our schools, it would be great. And the students who are volunteering are all L students as well, or former L students.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is great. So that would be an exciting night. And
Is
go
there
ahead,
anything
Mark,
that
sorry.
we all should know if we're able to come, what you're looking for from us, or just be present?
No, just be present. It's more about having them. We're gonna, part of the program is we're gonna split up at the end of, the principals are gonna be there. So the families get to meet the principals of their building. They get an idea of who we are, the accessibility. We'll try to explain what the school committee does. We don't want to overload them, and we talked about only having 5 or 6 slides, if you will, of a presentation to get them. It's more about bringing them in, welcoming our families. So for the first one anyway, and then Christy on the second one might, for her bilingual pack, has an opportunity to meet with people and now try to rope some people in. So to be a part of that. So it's really exciting, and that's it from my lens in terms of what we've got going on after we came back from break.
Mike?
We have our full-day professional development coming up on January 17th, so excited to have pushed out that agenda to our staff. Really looking forward to getting everyone together as a school community for the first time in a long time. We have not done that where we bring everybody in to have a speaker come in. And this year, we've invited a woman named Carrie Stack. She's a motivational speaker and author. She's the founder of an institution called the Say Yes Institute. It's focused on emotional intelligence and EI skills. And she does a great job getting people engaged. She's dynamic, and I really hope our staff will enjoy hearing her message about taking care of themselves while taking care of our students. It's really a good message that everyone needs to hear, I think, especially at this time. We're just over halfway through the school year to get ourselves re-energized and focused. Erin Moore, who we've worked with for a number of years now on our responsive classroom initiative, is also going to be working with us. She's going to come in and she's going to do a presentation for our pre-K to 5 staff, and she's then going to go and do a different presentation for our 6 to 8 teachers. So one is going to be based on just dealing with some different behavioral techniques. Another is going to be about the importance of language and how we use language to communicate effectively with our students. And then teachers have really talked to us about the need for opportunities to enhance their ability to work with English learners. So we are providing some significant time for staff to work on some self-paced programming that is provided through WACA. WACA is is, I never get the acronym correct,
No, I
but
was gonna ask you
it's
that.
yeah, I knew it was coming as soon as I said it. But it's essentially English learning programming, and we are going to be providing that opportunity for folks to take part in it. Anywhere from a 1-hour self-paced course to a 20-hour self-paced course, folks need to take part in 15 hours to get their licensure renewal. So we're providing folks with the opportunity to at least get that started, whether it be an hour and a half or 2.5 hours of that day, but they'll be able to, take some significant time to do that. And beyond that is just some building-based professional development. I know that our science team wants to do some data analysis. Our English team is doing some data analysis at the high school level. And Mr. Regan has some different things planned, as does Ms. Davidson, but throughout that time, we're going to be sprinkling in that EL work for our team. Really excited about the day. I think it should be a productive day. Really hopeful that folks will get something positive from Carrie and be able to take some of her, advice, but also just enjoy her humor for a little bit, because there's not enough of that, I think, for our staff. Nurses are going to be doing some different things as well, and so are our counseling staff. So it's going to, I think, will be a great day.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good. Warrant approvals? Thanks, Mike.
All right, let's see. Between December 16th, 2022 and January 5th, 2023, I, Paul Kendall, authorized by my signature payables in the amount of $433,337.29. This includes general fund expenses of $183,183.99, revolving expenses of $247,218.55, and grant expenses of $2,934.75. I also signed off on $3,971,578.61 of payroll.
Thank you. Next up, minutes December 15th, 2022. And they didn't print for me, I'm seeing now, so I'll leave it to you to tell me if you have.
I only have one change.
One change?
Yeah. Mike is the assistant superintendent, not the vice
I noticed
superintendent,
that, yes.
which is fine.
I noticed it.
But other than that, they look good.
Anybody else?
Was that changed?
Was that an amendment, or was that a
If you
fix?
scroll down to.
No,
his
it's in the third
update.
page.
Oh, in
Yeah.
his update,
Yeah,
okay.
In the update, yeah.
I'd
His
like to-
title is listed.
Yeah, it's just
yeah.
title was wrong.
Oh, down on that.
Yeah,
okay.
that's all. That's all it was. That's all, the only thing I caught.
Yeah,
So,
I noticed that too.
Anything else?
Looked good to me.
I'll take a motion.
Move to accept the minutes
As amended.
as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Tina?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Do we have gifts and donations?
we do, and again, we've got 12 for helping our own fund, so I'm just going to read the amounts instead of all the names that go with this. And, $50 to helping our own, $250 for helping our own fund, $50 helping our own, $30 helping our own, $150 helping our own, $50 helping our own, $50 helping our own, $100 helping our own, $150 helping our own, $50 helping our own, another $50 for helping our own, and then we have $329.70 for Planet Aid for miscellaneous gifts and donations, for a total of $1,309.70.
I just asked, was there a specific outreach on that fund that I've forgotten about?
No, quite typically during the holiday season, families know that we've had this fund for years, and they just donate during this time of year, for sure.
It's been mentioned in the.
Was
high
there something
school.
in the, I didn't notice if
Yeah,
there was.
it's been in
but-
the daily announcements.
Okay,
all
great.
through
Okay,
December,
great.
yeah.
I don't get those, so.
Yeah, which
yeah,
was great.
Great, thank you.
Move to approve the gifts and donations as presented.
Second.
All in
They did,
favor?
yeah.
Tina?
Okay, great.
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Aye, thanks. Member updates? Anybody?
Tommy?
Get there first.
Tommy?
I guess the most pressing update for all of the.
Why don't you turn on your mic?
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris stole it. For all of the lovely people watching, the first update I'd like to give is that the class of 2023, that's my class, the current seniors, are currently having a fundraiser at Ashland Ale House to help support our senior week. Everyone pays individually, but in order to make it so that more people can come, we fundraise on our part to offset the cost to try and get it down from what it is currently, which I think is about $85, which is not an insignificant sum, to something lower and more manageable. So if anyone would like to go there, that's 4 to 9 tonight. Just tell them you're with the class of 2023. That's the most pressing one. The other
I'll
update.
go there after the meeting, is that what
Yeah, 100%, without a doubt.
Just tonight. Tonight's the only
Just
night.
tonight, just Thursday the 5th. Otherwise, we are 2 weeks out from midterm season, so that's exciting, and not at all stressful. After the holiday season,
I know you're graduating this year.
I am graduating this year, but there's a big line in my the contract that I signed for universities that is like, I will keep my current standard of academic achievement, so I can't actually just sleep during those midterms, though I would like to. Otherwise, many clubs and other organizations are back into swing after break. The student council is planning their game night to just raise some morale across the community, try and have some fun. The NHS is starting to plan fundraisers for similar purposes. They have like an open ice night that they're planning with. It was Loring Arena. It's going to be a different skating area in the area, around the community. And I haven't heard from many of the other clubs. Obviously, we talked about JSA and their trip, planning that to go down to DC. But otherwise, it's just transition back from break and getting people, back used to waking up before 8 a.m. to go to class and getting their homework done and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's not a struggle in my house.
I say it's not just a struggle for the kids either.
Right.
Same.
Yeah.
Thank you. Who's next? Anybody else
You have anything?
have anything besides Mr.
No, I mean,
Kevin?
our last meeting, I was just gonna say, not for me, our last meeting was right before break, I feel like,
I'll
so.
start before you by saying that I did get a personal tour of Mendez yesterday, and it is amazing, even for those of you who were able to come whenever we went about a month or so ago. It's just come along so much since then, even. It's like a whole different building already, and it's just so exciting. It's really happening, and it's...
And speaking of, are there any milestones coming up where you feel like another tour with all of us might be worthy?
Which week you talking about?
Exactly.
Things are moving so quickly.
I mean, so the ones that went the other, whenever it was, I think it was the Friday after Thanksgiving, right? It's totally different. All the admin space is essentially framed. The cafeteria is framed. Most of the pods are framed. Stairs 1 and 2 are done. The windows to the left of the main entrance are in. The lower windows on the gymnasium are in. The west side vertical windows in the gymnasium are in.
The bricks are up on a lot of the...
They continue to work on the masonry around the back. It's totally different.
Beautiful. It changes very quickly, so whenever you can
Yeah,
get
I mean,
there,
so
you're probably...
I've gone 1 week, I come back the next, and I'm like, holy crap. And then we'll get to a part where it doesn't look like a lot's changing because they're doing different things that aren't as visual. But so yeah, it's a trying to think what else is going on over there now. But yeah, so the windows are going to be going in, and the roof is the next dry day. They're going to have one more day to finish off the mechanical roof, and that'll be the end of the roof will be done. Trying to think what else is going on, Jim, that over there that's notable.
Is it progressing on the schedule we're hoping it is, or have there been any other delays?
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Yes to all of the above.
It's fluid. It depends on when you
Yeah.
ask me.
Okay, fair enough.
So things that we thought we put to bed are
Rearing
rearing
their
their heads
heads.
again, and we're meeting with vendors to figure out why their answers are changing. So yeah, it's so we're still on
But
schedule.
it's
but
moving along, like you can tell that it's just
Sounds like
buzzing. There's a lot of workers over there.
Yeah, I think sometime in the next couple weeks, the clock tower will start to get
Yep.
the precast on there. So there are, and she got a picture of so the front is tented right now because they're doing masonry, and they're also doing the precast on the admin suite. So that's all being done, and so, yeah, it's.
I'll
said
share out the pictures.
It's a different building than when you saw it, for sure.
Anybody else?
And if you want to see it, let Jim or I know, and well.
I have nothing.
Do you have a motion to adjourn?
You want to skip the action items?
Oh, well, we have skipped the action items for about the past 5 years.
Well, no,
But does anybody have any action items
no, I
that they
just
would
don't
like
want
to
to lose sight
discuss?
of the couple things
Yeah,
that
the
came up along the way.
equity.
Yeah, well, yes, we should have, and also, Jim, did you want to talk about whether we have a January meeting?
A couple things. One, some of you have homework that's due in the next day or two with regard to the strategic planning workshop.
Some of us?
Well, all
Some of
of
us
you.
have.
I was trying to be, some may have already turned it in,
Some have
Paul.
already turned it in.
So,
Some have not.
some have not. That being said,
I think it's due tomorrow, right?
it is, it's due tomorrow. That being said, we do have a meeting on March 17th,
Grant extension.
and
You mean January
Oh,
January
yeah,
17th,
geez,
right?
March,
Okay.
I know, I'm moving ahead. January 17th, in 2 weeks, on a Monday, right, or Tuesday. And I'm getting my days confused. And we would normally have a meeting on Thursday, the 19th as well. I'm going to review the agenda items that potentially would have been on that meeting. And if they're just administrative items, I would like to bring them here to the body on that day.
the
Since we are
17th.
on the 17th, and then not have the meeting on the 19th if it's not necessary. There's only one pressing thing that I think we need to talk about and have conversation, and Kelly doesn't necessarily need to do that on the 19th, is that first meeting probably in February about community service from site council conversations. So I talked to her tonight, and she's like, no, it's not pressing. It's not anything that's going to impact what they're doing right now. But it is something we need to have a conversation in the near future. So I would just recommend that if I don't, as I go through and I talk to Mark and Lori, as I go through the items, and I usually do that tomorrow with Gretchen to see what it is. So we would meet on a Monday to talk about the next week. If we don't have any items, I don't see a need. We're already meeting on that Tuesday. And if it's administrative, and I know there's one administrative thing, and it's adding a person to the wellness subcommittee, that's it. So
We can take a quick
we can
vote.
take a quick vote on
Yeah,
that and be done with it.
Right.
So
What did we set as our start time for that 17th meeting?
we
Was
said
it
4 to 6 because Paul and I have another meeting at 6:30.
I wasn't sure if it was 4 or 4:30. Okay,
Right.
Thank you.
4 to 6?
4 to
Okay,
6.
thank you. I have 4:30 in my thing.
Yeah, that's what I had too. But now it's 4.
Right. And that one's at the high school, not at. I think I said that. Did I say that? I don't think it's in the activity room.
No, I did not know that.
I think I'll check, but I'll let you know. But I'm pretty sure I booked the high school.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Just as a heads up, one of my kids has a doctor's appointment at 3, so
Yeah.
I'll be coming right after.
Yeah.
If I'm a few minutes late, I'm on my way.
If you got your homework in, you're good.
Thank you
And
for
you
the
can't come
reminder.
if you don't get your homework in?
No, you need to come because
I was gonna
because
say-
we're
I'll
actually
be
gonna be,
there.
we're
I
actually going to be
might be 4
focusing.
minutes late.
We will be focusing on the equity
Yeah.
component.
Yeah.
If I
can't
don't
get
do
into
the
the
homework,
Google
am I not invited?
Will
Talk
it
to your
be
daughter.
in the library?
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
anticipate. I'm pretty sure I booked it. I'll have to check with Gretchen in the morning. So,
Okay.
yeah,
And then, for our
I think I did.
budget meeting, maybe we just keep it on the radar to talk about some of the things that we're.
Yeah. March 4th is a budget workshop. So, and again, it should have been part of the update. Chris and I met with Michael Herbert yesterday, and so there's conversations ongoing with regard to the budget, and there's work that we need to do, and we're pulling that together. You'll have all the information well ahead of time before we meet in terms of a workbook. So that's it.
And our budget workshop, is that, I remember a couple years, a few years ago, we broadened that invite to
Yeah,
the
it-
select board or.
Yeah, I will always invite, I've always invited them. They just choose not to come. But the principals, again, will present their request that they had. I'll walk you through, we took a little different approach this year in terms of principal requests, director requests, and then 2 versions, if you will, of what was requested and what was not requested, or what as we went through our own working session as a group afterwards, what we moved into the let's move this forward line, as opposed to the what's not moved forward. And I know that's always a question you all have, is what aren't you moving forward? So it'll be much clearer this year before we even have to ask those questions, so, yep.
All right.
I'll give you that motion now. Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
All right, so I'm looking for my email with my homework and I'm not.
Oh, it was a while ago.
Mike sent it.
Well, no, so,
Who's the email from? I don't think it's from Mike. Is it
That was
is it from Jen?
And I did send it, and I BCC'd.
Well, I had to ask too. Paul forwarded it to me.
don't let that confuse you, say that.
I'll see if I can find it.